All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're not just going to read some ancient text. We're going to be detectives. We're going to crack open a page of the Talmud and see not just what it says, but how it thinks. And we're going to do that by tackling a really fascinating paradox.
So here it is, the central puzzle that kicks this whole thing off. I mean, think about it for a second. Imagine you flip a light switch and in that exact nanosecond, the bulb blows. Did the light ever really turn on? It's that kind of brain twister, that logical knot that we're about to untangle.
Our mystery begins, as so many of these Talmudic discussions do, with a single scholar posing what sounds like a simple question. But trust me, it's about a very specific and very puzzling little situation. It all starts with a bloodstain.
Okay, so here's the setup. A rabbi named Rami bar Ḥama lays out the scene. Back in the ancient temple, the blood from certain offerings was considered holy, totally pure. So he asks his colleague, hey, what happens if a drop of this pure, holy blood lands on a piece of clothing that's ritually impure?
And here's where your brain starts to hurt a little. See, there's a law that says if holy blood gets on your clothes, you have to launder them. Simple enough. But the very instant that pure blood touches the impure garment, the blood itself becomes impure. So did holy blood ever really touch it? Or was it disqualified at the exact moment of impact? It's this simultaneous event that creates the whole problem. Now, you'd think they'd just argue about the blood, right? Nope. In a classic Talmudic move, they pivot. To solve this puzzle, they go looking for a clue in a totally different area of law. To answer a question about blood, they start talking about water. So they bring up this other case, this one about something called water of purification, which was used to cleanse people from some pretty serious impurities. And when you know it, there's a debate here too. On one side, you have Rabbi Elazar, who says, look, this water can purify someone even if the act of purifying them simultaneously makes the water itself impure. But the other rabbis, they disagree. They say, no way. Once the water's impure, it's game over. It can't work anymore. And Rabbi Elazar, he comes in with his Exhibit A, a real-world example. He points out that this special water would be sprinkled on someone who was already impure for another reason. So get this, the instant the pure water touches them, their impurity contaminates the water. But, and this is his whole point, it still works. It still purifies them from that other, more severe issue. It's a perfect parallel to our blood-stain paradox. But wait, you're with me so far? Good. Because to really get what Rabbi Elazar is saying, we have to go one level deeper. We're going down the rabbit hole into a case within a case. It's like one of those Russian nesting dolls of logic. To solve puzzle A, we have to solve puzzle B, which means understanding puzzle C. So let's follow the trail to a hovering jug. So let's paint a picture here. Imagine a pure person standing outside a clay oven. Inside that oven, there's something impure, like a dead lizard. Now, the person is holding a jug of that same water of purification. Then they just pass the jug through the air right over the top of the oven's opening. They don't stop, they don't touch anything, they just wave it through the air. And this leads to our next big question. Is the water in that jug still pure? I mean, all it did was pass through the airspace over something impure. Nothing ever actually touched. Is that enough to contaminate it? And you guessed it, we've got another major disagreement. On one side, you have the legendary Rabbi Akiva, who says, yep, that water is now impure. But then you have most of the other sages, the rabbis, saying, no way, it's still totally pure. So why the huge difference of opinion? What's going on here? Okay, this is it. We've reached the engine room of the whole discussion. It's not enough to know that they disagree. We have to unpack the why. What are the legal ideas driving these two completely opposite conclusions?
So a later scholar named Rava chimes in to explain Rabbi Akiva's logic. He says, look, Rabbi Akiva isn't talking about physics here. He's using a legal principle. The law can treat the act of passing over the oven as if the jug had actually stopped and rested on it.
And this principle has a name, kamanach dami. It literally means it is considered as if resting. It's what you'd call a legal fiction. Even though the jug was moving the whole time, the law can say, let's analyze this as if it were stationary. And that potential state, that what if, has very real legal consequences. But of course, this is a debate. Just when you think you've got it figured out, another great scholar, Abaye, jumps in and challenges that whole explanation. He basically says, hold on, I don't think that's why Rabbi Akiva said what he said at all. I have a different theory. This back and forth is what makes the Talmud so alive.
So now we've got these two competing theories on the table.
Abaye thinks Rabbi Akiva's ruling is just a precaution. A better safe than sorry kind of rule, in case someone accidentally sets the jug down. But another scholar, Rava, offers a much more complicated theory. And what's really crucial here is that they disagree on whether you can even compare the hovering jug case to our original bloodstain paradox. That's the real heart of the matter.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. We've been way down in the logical weeds. Now, we can finally climb back out and return to where we started, that single drop of blood on an impure garment. Only now, we're armed with a whole new set of principles to work with.
And what do we find? After all that digging, we discover there isn't one simple answer. The verdict on the bloodstain, it turns out, hinges completely on which of those logical paths you decided to follow back there, with the hovering jug and the purification water. So, here are the two possible endings to our mystery. If you follow Rabbi Elazar's logic that something can still work even as it's being disqualified, then nope, the garment does not need to be laundered. But if you follow the path of the other rabbis who reject that idea, then yes, laundering is required, because for one tiny instant, that holy blood did make contact.
And as it turns out, this whole detective story, it's really just one chapter in a much larger, more fundamental debate. The question of the bloodstain is just one specific example of a huge disagreement about how we even judge an object's legal status in the first place.
And this slide really lays out that bigger principle. See, Rabbi Akiva argues that an object's history and its potential matter. If an offering was ever fit, that status sticks with it, even if it later gets disqualified. But Rabbi Shimon, he only cares about the final state. He says if it's disqualified now, who cares what it used to be? Its past is irrelevant. So we end where we began, with a question. But now it's a much bigger one, isn't it? What truly determines something's status? Is it what it was meant to be, its ideal former state? Or is it what it is right now, its final present reality? The Talmud doesn't always give us a single answer, because sometimes the most important thing is learning how to ask a better question.